Hello and welcome to our discussion today on what constitutes a poison, what is a toxin, and how does the toxin make its way into the body. And once the toxin, the poison is inside the body, how does it distribute and disseminate to the tissues and the organs and the organ systems within the body? And how does your body respond to these toxins and poisons? And how does your body get to, or at least try to eliminate these poisons? What is the ultimate fate of these poisons and toxins? So, the concept of a poison or a toxin is very interesting, and it actually captivated scientists and philosophers from thousands of years ago. And in fact, there's this one philosopher, this Greek philosopher, his name was Paracelsus. Paracelsus came up with a very interesting definition to what is a concept of a poison. What is a toxin? Interestingly enough, Paracelsus came up with a definition that still holds true up to today, thousands and thousands of years later. And his definition, his interesting definition of what is a poison, what is a toxin, was that Paracelsus said that a poison is no different from a remedy. The only difference is the dosage. The dosage is the criterion, the differentiator of what is a toxin and what is a remedy. So, meaning anything taken in excessive dosage, that is a toxin and a poison. And interestingly enough, that is very true. Who would ever thought that water could be a form of a toxin or a poison? Yes, if you drink too much water, you will get poison. Your body will become poisoned with water because we have pH, blood pH, we know we have osmotic balance, we have to have an isoosmolar state. There is a osmolar homeostasis in our bodily tissues and in our blood, and drinking too much water, that is going to lead to hypervolemia and the dilution of these acids and the pH and the dilution of these salts that are in our bodily fluids. And drinking too much water is going to disturb the osmolarity, the homeostatic range of the osmolarity, 300 milliosmoles. So drinking too much water, as in the case in the athletes who run the marathon, the athletes running the marathon, there were many cases, coincident. Unfortunately, there were coincidences where back in the day, where people didn't know much about the concept of drinking excessive water, there were many athletes who would complete a marathon and they are so thirsty and so hot and they are so exhausted, so they drink too much water that they die on the spot. And they understood that drinking too much water disrupted the osmotic balance and led to hypervolemia and led to increased cardiac output and led to increased contractility and increased blood pressure and cardiac tension and led to eventually to shock. But our point is, the definition of Paracelsus is a very interesting definition in that everything has to be in the right amounts, in the right dosage. Excessive amounts of anything is going to backlash as a poison. So his definition to a poison was that taking anything in excessive quantities, that is going to cause intoxication and that is going to cause poison. So if you take 300 milligrams ibuprofen, that's a remedy for back pain and leg pain and nerve pain. Then taking 3,000 milligrams of ibuprofen. Now, that is no way an example of a remedy. That's going to be a poison. So let us now discuss what are the potential routes or routes of entry of the poison into the body. The first major route of entry, supposedly this is breeze, so the air. So inhaling asbestos, inhaling, all of these toxins that are in the air. So they're going to enter through the air, and once these toxins that are in the air, where are they going to ultimately go to? The toxins in the air, they're going to be inhaled into the lungs through our nasal cavity and through our oral cavity, and then they're going to saturate our lungs. And so number one, air. From air, number two is going to be the lungs. You see the lungs over here. And number three is going to be the circulatory system. So now the poison made its way to the circulatory system, from air to the lungs to the circulatory system. So the ultimate destination of the poison is to try to make it to the circulatory system. Why do we call it the circulatory system? Because it is the subway that transports the nutrients, transports oxygen, removes metabolic waste in a circulatory manner. So once the poison makes it to the circulatory system, you bet it's going to be transported and taken to all the tissues. So that's the first route: air, respiratory system, air, lungs, and then circulatory system. The second route is the route of ingestion. So drinking polluted water or contaminated water, or eating polluted or contaminated food. So drinking contaminated water, eating contaminated food, that's not going to go to the respiratory system. That's going to go to the GI, the gastrointestinal system. So now we have a separate route now. Now it's not air, lungs, circulatory system. Now it is drinking the water, gastrointestinal system, eating the food, swallowing the food that is contaminated, that goes through the stomach, then from the stomach, the small intestine, then the large intestine, and then the intestines are going to absorb the toxin into the circulatory system. So now the toxin made its way from being ingested through the gastrointestinal system into the circulatory system. The last route is the skin. So, for example, in the soil, there is a lot of poisons and irritants that are on the soil, and once you touch them, your skin, there is the epidermis, that's the top layer, then the dermis, the second layer, then the bottommost layer is the subcutaneous fat tissue, that is the hypodermis. These are very important layers, and there's subcutaneous tissue, under which there's connective tissue, and there's a lot of exchange. There's a lot of exchange of this blood system is going to exchange, is going to uptake the poison that made its way from the epidermis to the dermis, then the hypodermis, then into the blood vessels, then it's going to transport its way into the circulatory system. So you see what's in common between these three routes: air, lungs, circulatory system. Then water, food, gastrointestinal system, then circulatory system. Lastly, the soil or the environment, then the skin, the integument, and then the circulatory system. What's in common? The circulatory system, because that is the terminal. That is the terminal place where we get to transport the once we make it to the circulatory system, we have leaked, and we have now entered into the body, and now we have made it to the tissue. So now the poison is in the tissue. Now let's look what happens beyond. Let's look now what happens beyond the tissue compartment. Now we made it we made it into now we made it into the now that we have made it into the circulatory system, let's look at what is next for the poison. So now it is no longer an issue of negotiation, where is it doesn't matter which route the toxin has come into, which route did the toxin come into the body. Well, the point is now we have all entered into the circulatory system. That's the common step. After the circulatory system, we have distribution to the tissues. So the toxin now is either going to lead to toxicity and poisoning the tissue, and it can also be stored in the tissue. Not all the poison is going to be leaving the body. Poison is going to ultimately be stored in the bone tissue. It could be stored in the lipid tissue. It could be stored in the visceral or soft tissue. But you have to appreciate something that is very pivotal and very interesting, and that is your liver. Your liver has a special set of enzymes. These are very, very, very important for you to know. These are known as microsomal P 450 P450 enzymes. Microsomal liver P450 enzymes. Cytochrome enzymes. P450 cytochrome enzymes. What do these enzymes do? These enzymes will metabolize the poison. Well, what is the problem? Why do we need to metabolize the poison? You know the issue with the poison. Is the poison polar or non-polar? The poison is obviously non-polar. Non-polar meaning it will dissolve in lipid. That poison will dissolve in detergent. It will not dissolve in water. If that was the case, if the poison can dissolve in water, then we don't need to metabolize it. We can just urinate it, and it can just leave our body. We will never be intoxicated. We will never be poisoned. But the issue is that the poison is not water soluble. So if we want to excrete it, if we want to urinate this poison, if we want to defecate in the fecal matter, this poison, we have to first convert it from lipid poison into water soluble poison. So that's phase one. So the P450 cytochrome liver microsomal enzymes will take the poison through phase one. Phase one is going to be a series of reactions known as oxidation reactions, reduction reactions, and hydrolysis reactions. And these reactions are very important into converting. In the end of oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis, you bet that now we have successfully converted our poison from lipid soluble to water soluble. Now, is that the end? No, there's phase two. Phase two is now called, so phase one is called activation, converting the poison from lipid soluble poison into water soluble poison. That is called activation. Activation. After activation, the next phase is known as conjugation. Conjugation. Conjugation is when we take the activated poison and we're going to add glucuronic acid to it. Glucuronic acid. This glucuronic acid and glutathione, and we're going to add also to it bile that comes from the gallbladder. Now you bet the poison is on its way out the body. It has been activated by P453 enzymes. It has been conjugated by P453 enzymes. Bile has been added to it. Oh, it's going out. It has no way in the body anymore. It's leaving. So now it's gonna leave the body. It's gonna get metabolized and it's gonna get excreted. That's why patients who have liver disease, hepatic liver disease, inflammatory liver disease, alcoholic liver disease, cirrhotic liver disease, any type of fibrotic liver disease, they will have a problem metabolizing and getting rid of the toxins and the poisons. Why is that? Because this liver is where we make these P453 metabolizing enzymes. These metabolizing enzymes, they don't just metabolize poison, they also metabolize medications and drugs. So that's how we get them out. So patients who have literally take care of your liver, be very careful with your liver, be careful with drinking the alcohol, be careful with your liver, because your liver is responsible for the major part of metabolism in your body. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.